ayé ẹlẹ́tò. Lọ́gbọ́n tí ó dé olùgbàlà, ayé ẹlẹ́tò. Instantly ló jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀. Bó ṣe ń dé báyìí, wọ́n dẹ̀ yí orúkọ padà. Lọ́gán tí ó dé. Lọ́gán tí ó dé. Ẹni tá a pè lágàn ẹ máa sọ wípé. Lọ́gán ni ó dé. Àwọn tá ti forúkọ aburú pè ní ilẹ̀ wọ̀nyí. Lọ́gán tí ó dé. Àní lọ́gán tí ó dé olùgbàlà. Ayé ẹlẹ́tò. Ayé ní ẹlẹ́tò olùgbàlà. Ayé ẹlẹ́tò. Lọ́gán tí ó dé olùgbàlà. Wow, what a great way to start this evening. My name is Dele Modu, and I'm reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria, in the heart of Africa. Pastor Toby Adegboyega, good evening. It's good to see you. Sir. Let me start by saying that I've been watching you for some time.
Wow.
It actually started sometime last year. Someone called me and said, have I heard of a church called Spark Nation? Before God and Man? No. I didn't know. So I started watching out. I heard all kinds of unprintable things about you. Unprintable. Even last night, some people said, why are you interviewing Pastor Toby? And I said, I'm a journalist. I am not an investigator. I am not a prosecutor and place it in the public domain. So I want to thank you for accepting to speak to me. I saw what you wrote or the church wrote last night, that you trust my integrity, and that is why you have decided. I thank you for the compliments, but we have loads of questions for you.
It's my pleasure to be here.
And let the whole world know that Pastor Toby's dad is watching us live from Ibadan. I believe he's in Ibadan.
Yes,
and he had to join. I think he's 70-something years old. He's about 70.
Yes.
How old is he?
76, I think. 76.
So about 76. And he had to join Instagram just to watch us tonight. So thank you, Daddy, if you are seeing me from Ibadan. Thank you so much. I'm sure you are very proud. How do you feel being watched right now from all over the world?
It's amazing. I think, first of all, I must say a big thank you to you for the amazing interviews you've been doing. They are very inspirational. But before the interview, the amazing stance you've had, the right information. And so for me, it's more than just being watched all over the world tonight. It's being watched with you, knowing that you're fair, you're honest, and you have the good of people at heart. So that makes me feel elated and excited, looking forward to the night. So
I can see a lot of your people. They are invading this platform tonight. I can see a lot of them. I understand we are live on Facebook and we are live on Twitter. So, when did you arrive in London? Because I understand you were not born in London, though you have taken London by storm.
I wasn't. I came in 2005. I've just finished studying law in Nigeria. So my intention was to go to the US, United States, to do my master's in law. That was the intention. So I actually came here to see some of the family members, my nephews and niece. We've been close over the phone and all that. So I thought, I've got some time. Let me come to London and wait till September admission in the US. And that was 2005. But when I came, over the month, I started seeing young people and the way they were living their lives, and realized that the generation then, the older generation then, did not know what to do with them. So they call them all manner of names out of not knowing what to do. So I started to take that up, started to speak to them, but that was what led me here.
So, but were you ever into any church matter when you were back home in Nigeria?
Well, when I was young, I was. My dad, as you rightly said, is a pastor watching tonight. My mom is a pastor too, even though my dad is a chartered accountant and all that, but he was a pastor. So at the age of 8, I started to preach. I loved gospel things. I just loved church stuff. I did that all the way to university. And at some point, I had to leave that because I just didn't feel that it was my way. I thought I was going to find my own way. But God brought me back to this place. It was God because I've always loved God, even though I derailed for a while.
So was it the result of that derailment that inspired you eventually and gave you the strategy you are using now?
Looking back now, yes. We went to all sorts when we were in university. But looking back, I think what that did for me was to give me some sort of boldness and understanding the other world. Should I not have, what would have happened is I would have been too judgmental. I'll be judgmental. I would not see the own hairs and according to what I would perceive as my upbringing. And so my derailment gave me a free mind. It gave me the ability to look at things from the other side and to look at solutions. How do you prefer solutions to difficult situations, especially when it comes to young people? Because the people with whom we were derailing, I realized that they were good people. They just needed a arrowhead leadership. And that's what we were able to bring to London. We had the expertise and the ideas to talk to people in ways that can connect to the next generation. So yes, it did help a lot, sir.
So when did you start, when and how? Let me put the two questions together. Did you start your ministry? So
in 2005, what I was doing was gathering, just talking to young people in a certain area called Queen's Road, Peckham. Queen's Road, Peckham in London then was very, very notorious. So when I realized that I wanted to stay to help, I had to fend for myself. So I took up a kitchen potting job. I was washing plates in kitchens in London, and I would get paid about £400. I would use 270 out of it to help their needs with the little that I had, meet their needs, talk to them, and get them encouraged to go back to school. Many of them are guys whose parents sent them to UK and they completely derailed. So I started to do that, and that started to grow. So that was 2005. But the Spark Nation, and we journeyed all through doing that till about 2 years after. Then we were a bit older. And one day he said, would you lead a church? Would you consider leading a church? We had that talk. I said, no, I actually wanted to go to America. I said, just do it for a while and see how it goes. And that's how, so it was 2005. And the how is my dad asking me to temporarily lead a church.
Wow. And so when you started, about many of you were in the church? How did you start recruiting people and growing? I mean, I saw your videos yesterday. Maybe you have in excess of 5,000 congregation. I don't know, but huge crowd, passionate, energetic.
About three or four of us, those years, 3 or 4 of us. And over the years, we'll grow a bit, we'll fluctuate. It was fluctuating. And we had older people too. So it was just initially, as much as I wanted to reach out to young people, initially it was the normal church. We were doing things normally the way we knew our church, the way I grew up knowing church. But I felt that God wanted me to do something different. I felt like there is a community, and church is the way God wants me to reach them, not a social movement, nothing like that. It's just church. So what I did, what happened happened was 3 of us started, and when 3 of us started, 4 won. But then in 2015, the Spark Nation that is known today is what happened to us in 2015. We had a series of adversities in 2015, but those adversities were so necessary because what they did was they created the Spark Nation of today. We grew in 2015 from 200 people within the same year to over 1,000 people in 2000, from 1,000 to 2,000 and on and on.
So what do you think sparked of that interest in your church?
In 2015, whose parents will bring to me. Their parents bring them and say, look, we're having problem with this kid. And I realized when they stay with me, they are level-headed. Some of them, one of them, the first one to stay with me came in 2006. And he started living with me. I was 2006, late 2006, early 2007. I was renting a 1-bedroom somewhere in London, and he was living with me in my house. He graduated recently, and he was the best computer engineer in the UK. So he lived with me all through those years. What sparked up the interest is the fact that people finally saw a place where young people can actually, so they can actually connect with these results, not Spark Nation as a big church. They see these lives, they see these young men, and they see how the 2015 we came out a bit more as small church as we were. We came out more, and young people started coming. The day everything changed, I was actually preaching in church normally, 200 people or less. Young people were talking, and a guy just walked to the altar, to the stage where we in church we call it altar. Walked to the altar, brought out a knife from his pocket, and just we were even scared, like what's going on, and just threw it on the altar and started crying. From that day, Spark Nation has never been the same again. People come and do the same, from drugs to knife to all manner of things. And in that time, we didn't know how to contact the police. We didn't know how to undo such. So it was not planned at all. So I think the spark moment for us was people just movement in the United Kingdom that has economic conscience to it.
So it wasn't that you set out primarily to target criminal gangs in London?
Not at all, sir. What we wanted to do was to give every young person, I know, and maybe if we get there tonight, the suppression for our color and race when it comes to young people in London is out of this world. So I saw that, and I wanted to address an economic problem. The platform I had was the little congregation we had then and the young people. So my message to them, I was just telling them about what we were doing. But then now we realize that what has been holding them back is that crime life. It was through their surrenderedness, them coming and say, okay, so then we say, okay, so they were trying to get rich or to go up in life by doing gang, by crime and all that. So when they heard me, when they heard that I started speaking hope, I started speaking about you can prosper without crime, you can connect it. And the consequence of that was that going into the criminal world and cleansing that space for the authorities.
Wow. Now I can see that you dress smartly. Was that part of the strategy? And I see you wear expensive wristwatches, you drive fast cars. At what stage did you start making that kind of money? And were you making it from the ministry, or you were doing some other business, or how? How did you make such big money?
I'm still hoping to make big money, sir. I haven't gotten.
You don't drive a Ferrari if you don't have money.
It was interesting. At the point that we started to grow as a church, the guys coming in, as they were doing well in their own businesses, they started to give me things. But when they give me, I appreciate it. And my way of appreciating it is using it right. Then we discovered that what it's been doing is it attracts young people, because that's why they sell drugs. That's why they kill themselves. Sir, it will interest you to know that there are young men in London that have died for under 100 pounds. Africans, Nigerians, died for 100 pounds, killed themselves for 100 pounds. So when they see to me, they want to see how can they prosper without doing these things. So it's a strategy that by default worked, sir.
Well, when you say people give you things in your church?
No, we don't. We don't.
You don't? That. Wow.
We don't.
So how do you then run the ministry?
Well,
just from people making their contributions when they come to church?
No, we don't take contributions in church. Nobody would ever say they've been to a Spark Nation service and they're doing contribution. Again, these are the things that made even the authorities here laugh at some of the allegations, because they are looking at it and say, these collections at all. What we've done is, from the onset, I've always looked for smart businesses and get the young guys to run it. They will run it, and when they finish their month, what they do is they will give what they want to give. And those who voluntarily want to give, they will give what they want to give for the running of the church. So learning properties, raising money from properties and putting it into young people's businesses. The same thing that we're trying to make the government here do. The same thing that we're trying to make them understand and collect money in church. We don't do it. So we have a group of volunteers who want to give, and even that, we have to vent them in order for them to be able to give in Spark Nation. So it is our business. We have businesses like African Food. We intentionally don't mention it because if we do, the press will go after it and start writing because it's black business. So we have media, we have many things that people don't know that the black community can build here, and they are doing extremely well.
But it's been alleged that you encourage your church members to go into business, that's where the bulk of the money is coming from, that these young people, they are quite vulnerable and you take advantage of them. I mean, these guys are, but a lot of people are saying that. So my problem now is when I see those videos and I see the multitude of people in the church, I'm asking, could they all be gullible? They don't drop into a frenzy in that manner. So do you hypnotize them? Do you mesmerize them? Or what is it that you just have to snap your finger? And people are saying that you've also taken that to the level where you are able to collect money from them.
Well, we've said to those who be skeptical, because no organization is perfect. Only God is perfect. But then we've said, don't even present the facts to us. Present it to the authorities. Go with the people. So the last time that the authorities were trying to check things, they've said, okay, these people they are saying were scammed or da-da-da. I've never done any in my life. I don't need to. Most of them come to get from us. And they are amazing, good people. It takes one day, one time for somebody to come into Spark Nation and see for themselves. So even the documentary, which we'll talk about later if you ask, they never came once. When BBC wanted to do the right documentary on us, they were there. They came to my house. Their cameras were there. They followed people on a daily basis. The one they did last, which was supposed, I don't understand how you call that investigative journalism, and you don't even move near the place. And so they were extremely embarrassed when the police authority, the biggest police force, said there is nothing here that is worth anything. Their social media talk. What happens in the church of young people is when, let's say, 10 young people come in together into it and doing well in church, the other 5 get very worked up, and there's no reaching out to them. That's my arena. I work with young people. So, and social media has given everybody so much platform right now that you can go there and say anything you like. It doesn't matter. You just say what you have to say. Then we ask for facts. There is no church that I know of, see, meaning myself, scams you or do anything wrong. This is an independent commission. Report it there. Report it, and you can even report anonymously so that there is accountability, there is leadership. I do not get paid by the church, and I don't even have access to finances from the church. So nobody can come out and say, oh, he specifically scammed me and collected what from you. I would never, God forbid.
Some of you, is that not possible?
At the time they want me to show up, at the time they don't want me. You can't do that in this country. Young people are not idiots. They are smart, they are sharp, they know what they want in life, and they are fighting for their life. And yes, I have a lot of young people who believe in what I do, and what I've done with them is to give them, invest into their life, send young people all those things. That's what we've done. One of the guys that started the rumors on social media was a guy that we paid his bail to come out of prison. But because he refused to work hard in life, but he wants everything everybody's got. So, and I don't think there's a church in the world where you will know people we're young, we're just growing up. God is just the only one helping us. So we've been getting better and thinking, okay, what they are saying. I seek elders in the Christian body in this country and properly we look at things together. Elders.
I've seen Pastor Tunde Bakare in your church.
Yes, sir.
What's your relationship with the great man?
Doctor I listened to him as a child. I love his preaching. I love his word. He's like a father to know what we're doing. I said, look, uninvited, I'm coming to Spark, and he showed up. Since then, he's been back about 5-6 times just by himself. So he's the only man that can show up in Spark Nation without us printing handbills or flyers. And you know, Dr. Bakare, he will say his truth without holding back. So when some allegations started, we went through them together and I explained. I said, no, sir, this is this. And I gave him a free hand. And he did his own investigations too and came back and said, look, the truth of the matter is you're doing what people are not doing in the UK. And this has to happen to you. So he speaks truth and he's a good man. He's like a father.
Wow. So the last time if you say yes, the police will not show up if there was nothing.
Now, let me say this. The police never showed up. They never did. And I'm saying this publicly now. So, and that's a difficult, I know the press are watching this. The police never showed up. There are two things that grows to a certain stage, especially here. There are forces that are coming. The MI5 is coming because they have to guide their territory and be sure that this won't go left. So for me to have access into the places that we've had, they have to find out. That's them. And that's years ago. That's not even with this recent stuff. When the recent talk came up, they didn't show up. The police said to the press. And this is what is embarrassing to the press. And it is important at this point to emphasize that entry on us has been asked. It's been asked. The reason why it's not news right now is because very, very shoddy work. They realize, and I've been telling them that they did that shoddy work because they know it's the Black community. So the police looked at everything presented. The police will have to have two categories. Number one, that's how the system here works. Come and see how we are getting the results we are getting and what they can do to improve their own system. Before all this started, I'm saying this publicly for the first time. Before all this started, for the first time, sir, in the history of Metropolitan Police, they consider and they are considering how do they turn local gangs into community movements. So they never investigated one person. The news, it was BBC that broke the news to say they said that they are not investigating Spark Nation. They had to write it in a way that will not embarrass them further. But they've stopped the show, sir.
Wow. Now someone is asking, okay, before I ask that anyway, are you married?
Sir. Yes, I am.
How many? You have kids?
2.
Asking here that there is an iron lady at Spark. Do you know who is the iron lady at Spark?
Young people are iron people. They are strong. They have strong opinion. But you will never come to Spark and even see my wife at all. You won't see her. She doesn't sit in front. So people have been trying to search that question out and they are mystified. So she doesn't get involved. She's just in her own corner.
I see, but there seems to be someone very powerful. Every church has.
No, I don't know of anyone like that. I know very strong ladies. If you know all the things we run, you'll see very strong ladies. Women, I love women. They are mostly the ones that lead many things in Spark. I love what they can deliver. And again, people will call someone iron lady if they can well. And I love my ladies, all of them.
A fine, successful man like you, don't you get tempted?
Jesus was tempted, I think. The Bible says. But I think I keep my focus. Temptation and actually doing what is wrong, they are ways apart. So temptation for me, I've always been focused. I just know the results that I want, and I would rather keep on that result. So everyone that God brings my way, I see them as my daughters, and I learned well from my father a walk. So we won't touch it.
Who are your heroes in Christendom?
Number one is my dad, Prophet Esi Adeboyega, Spark, Nigeria. That's number one. Then I have people that I love. I love Pastor Bakari, as I've mentioned it earlier. I love the Tony Rappus of this world. For philanthropy, I love Reverend Mother Esther Ajayi. I admire what she does. I emulate what she does, and I praise what she does. So, and of course, some American preachers here and there that are not popular. I've not been very much into this.
So, do you engage other pastors to come to preach in your church?
No, we don't do it in Spark. And the reason is because it's a generation of new young people. They don't know most of these people. So we build our own pastors. So I have a role of young, dynamic pastors, and they love themselves. It's just that the world, especially London City, London is very conservative. So we don't. And more so, we would rather use the little money we have, put it into our community rather than give it out to others, at least for now. Maybe the system of the next generation will change, but the people we have relationship with, when they show up, I give them
I'm checking out the questions. We'll play some music for you.
Thank you, sir.
We decided to choose some music for you, and then okay, let's have the music. It's getting interesting. I enjoy Toby. Tọ́pẹ́ Àlàbí a lot.
Wow. She's amazing.
Ẹni tí ò ní Ọlọ́run kò ní kankan.
That's right. Wow.
Kò ní nǹkan. Ẹni tí ò ní kò ní nǹkan. Ẹni tí ò ní kò ní nǹkan. Mo wá rí bàbá tó mi nígbà ayé. Ìbàrẹ̀ màrẹ́ onígbẹ̀ẹ̀dẹ̀ ọ̀run. Ìwọ tó ní gbogbo ayé ní ìkáwọ́, ó sì lò ìka tó. Ìbà onímọ̀ tó ga jù. Ẹni tí ò ní ọ̀gẹ̀. Ẹni tí ò ní. Ńlá ló fà á láyé lọ́rùn.
Yes, sir.
I've requested for you specially.
Okay.
Nara by Tim Godfrey, my man.
Wow. I love it. I love it. Done so still wouldn't be. Amazing. Wow. Love you too.
Oh wow. I can play
Wow.
It's beautiful. What can we do without God?
It's beautiful.
Yes. So I really now want to go into the nitty-gritty of the arrangement. Curious. And
Yes,
I see the energy. I see the energy. It's stupendous. I saw them on the street. I think you went to number 10 Downing Street and all that. How did you get people to follow you on the road? They were even somewhere at a tram station, I think in Croydon. I don't know where. In Croydon. Yes.
Yes, sir. The Spark Nation is made up of 5 families. By 5 families, families, we mean different networks, power base and others. And so what the family can have different interpretation is it must be grassroots. So it cannot be the pastor at the far top and people down there. It must be grassroots. But then there are thousands of people. How do I reach them? We have 5 families. We're divided into 5 families. We grow from 5 families. And then there is a family head. Those are the pastors. Those are the leaders in each of those families. That family comes together on a Sunday, and that's what we have as Sunday service. What do these families do? They provide economic empowerment, which is number 1, housing. That's the concept we came up with, which now the government embrace. On the streets, there is something they call trap. That's a drug den. But we now said, okay, we're going to form a trap house. It's going to be called Take Risk and Prosper. These trap houses are the best thing, in my opinion, and in some of the government quarters' opinion that ever happened in the UK. Because what it does is, on like what people have been hearing, or some people who love to hear what is negative, what the trap houses do is very simple. It's like a mentorship house. If you go to Harvard, for example, they have for example, we have one that is just for science students. They go there, they learn, because we are dealing with parents that cannot pay for extra time for their kids. So trap houses pay, and sometimes we have many people who are out of house and stuff like that. Trap houses help them and things like that. So all these houses come together on Sunday and form a big church called Spark Nation. The excitement, the enthusiasm, the energy that we see, or that you're mentioning, sir, much as we can't meet everybody's needs. There's no way in the world. But we preach the word. The mechanism is the word. I've had people say, oh, your pastors need to be grounded, like someone is saying here. It is difficult for another human being to determine what grounded means. So you have very many people who are judgmental. Our own style is different. Not perfect, just different. We teach, we encourage people to be family oriented. We encourage people to watch out for their community. So, and we do that from these houses, from the divisions of these houses, so that we can quickly know what is the need of the person if the need arises. So the makeup of Spark Nation is a set of young people who love God, they love the word of God, they love to pray, but in addition, and some people will want to go to school. We just make sure that we create this pathway. Once we are able to do that, people will be excited, because people are just looking for happiness in life. So that's the major makeup of Spark Nation: the trap houses, our houses, our families, and then the coming together on a weekly basis.
I've never heard that before. I don't know if you want to. A lot of you, I can see the comments. People are talking about the trap houses. There are people who want to commit suicide if they ever have to vacate.
Most of all the people in the trap house, that's what the police found ridiculous. People, imagine a house that all the heads of government dedicated to things like this are visited. They are not secret houses. They are on the street, as in anyone can walk into the place anytime, any day. So there's nothing like if someone wants to vacate, there's no agreement signed. It is only after all these made-up crises that we now said, which is detrimental to the community, we now said, okay, we're not even taking anybody in anymore. The first day I announced that Croydon Council called me, you didn't say anything. Now you're saying that crime is back to that area. Sir, you can imagine homicide in UK cost £3.2 million taxpayers' money to investigate. We had more than 100 young people died of knife crime last year. Please, sir, if you do the mathematics, you will realize that they are themselves. If they put it for our economy, will be better. We've never received any grant from government before. But what we've done, these are dedicated leaders who use their own house to house people. So the Trap House is not Spark Nation buying houses. And they by themselves will take people to live with them. I live at the moment, I live with 16 people.
Oh, I was going to ask that.
Okay.
And your wife allows you to live with 16 people?
Yes, because she grew up in a big family too. Our mom in Nigeria takes people in.
And they don't disturb your family?
We disturb each other. They are my family.
Wow.
So we don't pick them on the street. This is what they got wrong. So people who want to criticize, this is what they got wrong. We don't pick them on the street and say, oh, come and start living with me. Most of them, it is their parents that will say, please help my son. Lately, the government safe houses that was picked on the street, not one. And what those who are criticizing, what they should know, including those who may be watching, what they should know is this. When all these rumors started, some people developed cold feet and they went to the safe houses and took their children out of the Trap House. Guess what, sir? 3 occasions. 2 of those kids are now back to prison and 1 is dead. We are saying that these people who talk, they don't know they sometimes have blood on their hands because you then find out you don't know what is going on. Opinions are cheap. Facts are sacred. If you are dealing with our open, our doors are open. You can come anytime. You can come and see how this operates. So because we are just meeting the needs. So it is sacrificial leaders who open up their house. Now, are these leaders perfect? No. But would they take advantage of a child? No. And there are no children there. Some even said, we saw some rumors. They said, oh, there was child abuse. I said, there's nobody there living these things. So this is what we believe as church, because what we are trying to do is create our own microeconomy. Create our own microeconomy. I was at the conservative government convention, and I think that's one of the things that causes us problems, because they thought I'm with the Tory party and stuff like that. Now, I was there and I saw the budget they gave to other things. When it came to our community, the budget was practically zero. So we looked at ourselves and said, we have to create our own economy. And our parents love church. They gave their whole life to. So we had to step in and evolve, get better as we go. So I'm not saying all the things anyone would have said is wrong. We're saying there are areas where we need improvement because only God is perfect. But we are trying to create our own microeconomy.